Boise.
Boise. Going to Boise, Idaho. We'll have to cut that out, but...
Yeah, we'll call it Behind the Mic, Get to Know Keith and Bridget. This is the Apparently Autistic podcast,
where we unmask the spectrum
with real voices
and real experiences.
We're your hosts, Keith Holloway.
And Bridget Holloway.
And I am apparently autistic. Before we get started, just a quick reminder. We're not experts in anything except our own personal experiences and perspectives.
Be sure to check out the important disclaimers and disclosures in the show notes.
Now let's dive in. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Apparently Autistic podcast.
Welcome, welcome.
We're your hosts, Keith.
And Bridget.
And this is episode 9, right?
I have lost track. I don't know. At some point, we're going to have to just be like, this is our next episode.
Yeah. We're still in single digits. The next episode is episode 10, though. Should we do something special for episode 10?
Sure.
We probably should have this planned out better. Huh?
We should. We'll do something special for episode 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
If
you watched the last week's episode.
Or listened,
yeah. We did a back and forth interview Q&A kind of thing because of executive dysfunction and burnout.
Yep. It's kind of like an ad lib.
Yeah.
Random.
And
we're going to ask questions this week.
Still stuck in burnout. Trying to have the energy to do anything but just go to work and come home.
Yeah. It goes in cycles. It'll kind of be interesting over time of doing the podcast for people to see how those cycles go. Like, I think consistency is the most important thing right now so that people can see firsthand what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because
it's
definitely a real thing.
Yeah. we're dedicated to keep doing episodes, even if we don't do as deep a research as we'd like to do.
Yep.
And I wanted to talk about that anyways. We already talked about burnout.
Yeah.
And I saw a post online from another autistic advocate, influencer, whatever. And she talked about basically how like autistic people who have full-time jobs, like usually have like no energy for anything outside of their full-time job.
Yeah.
And I used to wonder, I'd have coworkers that would all be talking about all these sports events and not just like, oh, I watched one game, but like they knew the stats. They like, oh, this guy's going to be good. Oh,
yeah.
And I'm like, how do you even have the time and energy to?
Or like they play golf on the weekends, or they're part of the softball league, or they, just all these different things that people do. And
I never understood how they had the energy.
Yeah.
So, like, I have energy for maybe some special interest related stuff.
Maybe.
And, yeah.
Right now it's pretty minimal, but...
It is.
It's like your extra time is usually spent more with stimmy stuff.
Yeah,
at this
like
point.
Trying to kind of recover from having to
just trying to bring the
everything.
Levels of whatever it is. I don't want to call it anxiety because it's not like you're on edge all the time. It's just the levels of just maybe even just taking the top layer out of your bucket so you can do what you need to do that day.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this week we didn't want to do hey, we're still not prepared, but I just don't have the energy to do deep dives yet and to like come up with a lot of research. So
we compiled a list of questions, both from some of our viewers and some from like forums that we follow and things like that. People that like questions that people are just curious about as far as the autistic world goes. So we compiled a list of questions and we are going to give you our life experience on.
Yep. So we like broke them down into different like groups, like segments, if you will.
Yeah.
Based on kind of the topic. Our first segment is going to be like specifically about us. So this is going to be from people who actually either interact with us online or listen or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff is a mixture of questions about like autistic related questions about us. And some of them might be us taken from, some people in some of the forums will post, hey, just a general question asking everybody that. So
yeah. And some of these questions are aimed more at, they would be aimed more at Keith, and I'll try as appropriate and as it makes sense to give my neurotypical answer to the question to kind of show the differences and things like that. I'll try to insert that as much as I can.
Yep.
So
Before we get going on this, totally forgot. Check out our merch store. Yes. I think last episode I said it wrong. It's just apparently autistic.myshopify.com.
Okay.
I will put the link in the show notes. I put the correct link in the show notes for last week, so hopefully people didn't just go by what I said.
Yeah. And if you have merch requests or ideas that you want to share with us, feel free to email them to us, send a message, something like that. Yeah. I will be doing more with the store. Please be patient with me. I'm working a lot right now, but as I get some time, I'm going to do more with the store, and I'd like to kind of maybe organize it into categories and just kind of look out in the world and see what people want. So if you have requests or you think like something that you have an idea for would be a hit, let us know and we'll definitely look at it and see what we can do.
We definitely want to try to keep our stuff like unique, like original for us. Like this shirt I'm wearing says autistic, employed, taxpayer. This is from another store online that sells autistic related stuff. So we're not going to be like trying to copycat other people's stuff.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of that goes on online with merch and stuff like that. But by the same token, if you see it in our merch store and you see it somewhere else that isn't directly connected to us, then it's copying us. So
not the other way around.
Right.
Just totally by accident.
Right. No, I mean, like that happens too. Like the guy who designed our logo sells shirts and stuff, and he's constantly finding people selling ripoffs of his designs.
That's too bad.
Yep.
We'll definitely try to stay true to it and keep it original. And if you see something that somebody else makes that you like, that you want to see if we can make, we might see if we can make a version of it that's our own kind of thing. But I agree with that.
Yep. And then I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about The Last Unicorn because I posted about that and I thought it was kind of cool.
All right.
So
what you got?
One of my favorite movies as a kid was a movie called The Last Unicorn. And apparently there's a lot of people that like that.
It was like an 80s thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it came out in 82.
Okay. Early 80s.
Really interesting animation style. Got a lot of big names in it too. Mia Farrow, Alan Arkin.
Voice actors.
Yeah, a lot of a lot of big names of actors who are doing the voicing in it. So anyways, I've always liked that as a kid. It's still like kind of a stimmy, relaxing, comfortable movie for me to watch now. And it wasn't until like last night that I don't even remember what got me thinking about it, but I started thinking about like why as a kid did I like a unicorn movie? You know, it's not like it's particularly like My Little Pony type of unicorn movie, but still. And I kind of realized like as a kid, you know, I always felt different from everybody else and didn't know why. And I kind of think as a kid, I resonated with the unicorn in the beginning when she finds out that she's the last and she's the only one and wants to find out if that's really true or are there others like her.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I think that's why I resonated with it. And then like, I think it still resonates because like my life journey kind of mirrors her journey in the movie. And eventually she has to, you know, face her fears, which is the Red Bull, and do something that like she never would have thought to do. And in defeating the Red Bull, finds all of her other unicorn friends.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of the same path that I went on to getting diagnosed and then finding my people that.
Yeah. Kind of a cute little story that like people can relate to. And there's other animated movies that have done similar things like Dumbo, feeling like the outcast and getting made fun of and just kind of figuring out where you belong. But in this case, the Last Unicorn specifically, like she finds more like her. And I think that that's what really rings true for the autistic community is like there's other people out there like you and you just have to find them and talk about it.
When you get diagnosed and realize that you're not alone, you're not some, strange, different from everybody else. You're different from a lot of people, but when you realize that there's others like you and you have a community and you have your own people, it's like we said in an earlier episode, why label yourself? Why get diagnosed? Because it's important to know that you're a zebra, not a weird horse.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's like,
you have your place and it's important, and you add, contribute and add something to the world. You just have to figure out what that is.
Right. Because when you realize when you get diagnosed, you realize you're autistic. Instead of being a failed version of a neurotypical, you realize that you're actually exactly how you're supposed to be.
Yep.
Like you're a perfect version of an autistic.
Yep.
And that's a big difference for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of has to be like a weight lifted off of your shoulder. Like, oh, I wasn't ever supposed to be like them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, that's probably just a pretty standard storyline for a lot of movies, really.
Yeah.
When you break it down. But anyways, I thought that was cool. And I got home from work and watched the last unicorn.
Did you?
I almost said the little unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Didn't finish it. I didn't have time. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I was already at work, so
yep.
I missed that whole thing.
Yeah.
But
we really have been working a lot. And people might hear this and go, seriously, but I had a 5-day work week. And usually I have a 4-day work week. And that's why my job works really good for me. Because 4-day work weeks are a lot better. But
on the flip side of that, today was day 1 of 14 in a row that I'm working. But
you're insane.
That's not even the problem. It's not even the 14 in a row that's the problem. It's the fact that my shifts right now are starting at 3 a.m. and that kills me because I like to sleep in.
Yeah. Yeah, so Bridget will probably be going to sleep as soon as we're done recording this.
Probably.
And this is late afternoon. So.
Yeah. It's almost 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So anyways, so should we get to the questions?
Sure. Let's
dive right in. Like Keith said, segment 1 or the first group of questions that we came up with are kind of more from messages and emails that we've received, just asking us a little bit about ourselves from our followers.
We'll call it Behind the Mic, Get to Know Keith and Bridget.
Segment 1.
Yeah. And this first question is for Bridget from Carla in Boise, Idaho. Bridget, what made you want to become a dispatcher, and how did that lead to aircraft dispatching? So I assume they're talking about 911 dispatcher. And then, yeah.
I think that my interest in being a 911 dispatcher started when I was pretty young, watching Rescue 911.
Oh, you used to love that show.
I remember watching it as a kid and thinking it was a cool show, but never it was the rescue part of it that I was interested in the stories. I never really thought as a kid much about the dispatcher, but as I got older, a family friend was a dispatcher and 911 dispatcher, and one day I asked her about it because I was interested in it. I said, how do you get into that? How do you? And she's, you don't want to do it. This isn't something you want to do. It's too stressful. It's not something that anybody wants to do. And so I kind of just left it at that and was still always interested and didn't really know who else to talk to about it. I had no idea, and I could have looked more into it, but my life was just not...
kind of chaotic.
Yeah, kind of chaotic at the time. But when I met Keith had been a dispatcher and was a firefighter, so I asked Keith, of course, how do you get into it? What do you do? And he talked to me about the application process and what it requires and the job. And quite frankly, when I started the job, I was in way over my head. It's a lot, and it takes a long time to really settle in. And I did not like it at first. So I went back to school and was working towards something else. And in the process of doing that, fell in love with it. So it really became part of who I was and what I really loved to do. So
while taking classes to move on, you decided to stay.
Yep, and changed my major to business management to work into administration and leadership within the 911 world, and how that led to aircraft dispatching. I really don't know that there's a connection.
Yeah.
You transitioned over because you liked aviation. You were interested in it. And me watching you, the jobs have a lot of the same skill sets, decision making, important like policies, procedures, stuff like that, using similar types of applications and systems and things like that. So there was a lot of crossover there that I could see. And you, with your experience in 911 dispatching and then transitioning over, knew firsthand, but I could see that it was less stressful than what I did. And if anybody knows about MS, stress is a big trigger for MS. So long term, I knew that I couldn't stay on the front lines of 911. Like as far as just call taking and dispatching myself. And leadership was one of my ways of staying involved and not being on the front lines, but this seemed like a better option. Like when we really weighed out the
better long-term option for sure.
Yeah. So
there's a lot more stability in it. Because you, like, in your short time at your last 911 dispatch place, like, leadership changed out often.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem as a secure thing. And
we wanted like the stability
and the stability and the, the steady income and the not a lot of question marks. And you know,
it was kind of funny because we had talked about it, and it was kind of like the 5-year plan for 5 or 10-year plan for me to eventually go to aircraft dispatch school and switch over. And it was like one night that we just kind of both looked at each other and we were like, what are we waiting for?
Yeah, what are we waiting for? Let's just
and so we kind of just pulled the plug and went for it.
It's funny. We kind of did what we've had to do in the past, which is decide we're doing it and then figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Like, and in the past, we just didn't have a choice. We were like, we just got to do this thing and we'll figure it out. And this time it was like, we had the choice, but we've had a lot of history of being able to figure stuff out. So we were just like, let's
do it.
Dive into it and we'll figure it out.
And, it takes both of us being ready to dive into it. So we were at that point. So.
And we're figuring it out. And Bridget's already a better aircraft dispatcher than I am.
No, definitely not. No. We had very different aircraft dispatching education.
Yes.
You went to a community college in a 9-month program, and I took a 8-week night class while I was still working full-time as a 911 dispatcher. So it's like just a very different path to get there, but it's the same end result. So, Carla, I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, send a message to us and we'll do what we can to answer.
If anyone's interested in this field, if you are an autistic who has a special interest in aviation, it's not a bad field to go into.
Yeah. Well, if you have concerns like, okay, this is one of my challenges, would I be able to do that? Like, we're definitely happy to answer those questions for you and try to help you decide if it would be a good fit.
Yeah. So. I will say, like I keep saying, it's the perfect job for me. How, we work 4 days a week if we don't pick up overtime. It's like, that's where I'm at. Like the big airline, mainline dispatching fits that. To get here, I had to,
it's a process.
To work a lot and I had to put a lot of energy and stuff into that. And it helped that it was a special interest, and it helped that I had a goal that I was working towards, but it was still pretty rough getting to this point too. So it's a good field to go into if you're neurodivergent, but it's going to take some.
It takes some time to get to the point that you're at.
Yeah, time to get to the place where I'm at, where I can just sit and do my job and not have to worry too much.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, our second question came from Ryan in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he asked, Keith, how did you go from being a firefighter to doing a podcast about autism? Like those are very different things. So that's a great question.
Man, that could fill up the rest of the podcast, right? Doing that journey, huh? Let's see if I can make a long story not quite as long. I don't think I could make it short, but no. Well, starting as a firefighter, like that was a dream job of mine since I was a little kid. I always thought it would be cool. And then in kindergarten, firefighters came to our class, and one of them brought his toy fire truck that he had when he was our age. And I was like, I've got a fire truck. So clearly I'm going to end up being a firefighter. So that just kind of like
obviously
solidified that. And then honestly, I got into actually firefighting as a volunteer when my older brother actually was a volunteer at a fire department and told me about it. And I'm like, I get to ride on fire trucks and I don't have to pay anybody anything? Like, really? Cool. So, but I did that and then ended up, let's jump some spots. I ended up as a firefighter, working full-time, getting part-time pay.
Yep.
I mean, they paid me for all my hours. They just paid me very little.
Right.
I was running into burning buildings to save people for $11.50 an hour.
But you never came home from work and complained about your job.
Nope.
The politics, maybe, but
some of the people, maybe some of the politics, maybe.
You never complained about your job.
No,
that was the reason that I was okay with you making as little money as you did.
And I've thought about like doing an episode about employment and careers that neurodivergent people might,
Yeah.
And it would mostly be focused on careers that I've done, but I've got some various careers in there, so it could cover any. Anyways, so I ended up getting laid off from the fire department. And before I lived in Ohio and was a firefighter in Ohio, if I had heard someone say they got laid off as a firefighter, I'd be like, yeah, you got fired.
Right.
Because it doesn't sound like a thing that happens. But in Ohio, it is. It happens sometimes. Usually when a firefighter gets laid off in Ohio, it's because some tax bill or some tax levy didn't pass, and so they won't have the money to keep everybody on the funding. Yeah. In our case, I was a part of like I said, I was working full time but getting paid very little, and that was like a group of us at this fire department were called shifted part time, and then there were people who were called career firefighters. We all worked the exact same schedule,
rotations,
same rotation. We all rode the same trucks.
Yep.
We all did the same things. The only difference was to be a career firefighter, you had to be a paramedic. But there were even some lieutenants who weren't, and they even had in their contract to pay for EMT basics, which is what I was. And yeah, we decided to fight for fair treatment.
They were, all of them who were fighting for it were even willing to go to paramedic school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just give us the time to get through paramedic school to make it even. But we're willing to do that if you're willing to put us all under the same umbrella and pay us the same. Because
really, the career firefighters were union.
Mm-hmm.
And they had no idea what a union is supposed to be. A union is supposed to be about making sure that everyone who's doing the same job is getting paid fair and getting treated fair. It's not supposed to be, we're the better people, we're the cool clique.
Yeah.
And that's how it was in that department.
Yeah.
And it was like, you have to earn your way to this. And I'm like, I went to fire school and I went to EMT school and I went through training here. I've earned my way. And, stop acting like you're better than everybody else.
Right.
So we tried to unionize the shifted part-timers. And then, of course, the career union people were like, oh, hey, no, we can't have another union in here. We're like, great, take us into the union. And they said, okay. And then worked out a dirty backdoor deal that made the department all career, but laid off 9 of us.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the 4 of us that were the leaders of pushing to get us to be treated fairly were among the 9 that got laid off.
And you were the 4 with the longest, the most years with the department.
It's like 40-something years worth of experience.
Yeah.
Out the door, but they kept people who were fresh out of fire school. So I fought that fight as far as I could because I'm stubborn and it wasn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
And once realized there was no more fight to fight, I had to look into another career. And so,
well, I mean, you had to evaluate if you wanted to start over somewhere else or move on to something different.
Well, by that point, I was too old for most departments to get on full time.
There's most have an age limit.
An age limit to start full time. So by that point, I was too old for that, and I couldn't be considered a lateral because I wasn't technically full time, even though I was working full time. So yeah. At first, I was just looking for a job to pay the bills, and I got a job working at the airport on the ramp. Was like, okay, this is cool. And after doing that for a while, I thought, I'm going to be a pilot. So I went to the local community college where I had taken some fire classes from, and I knew they had an aviation program too. And I said, I want to be a pilot. And the guy's like, okay, well, that's really expensive. Apparently, it was like I think he said it was like $50,000 in cost for the flight lessons.
Yeah.
And that's not covered by student loans or Pell Grants. So then I said, okay, well, what else you got?
Yeah. Well, and there's kind of another key important part of that story in there is after you got your job at the ramp, we were doing some traveling and enjoying the flight benefits, and we were kind of okay with where we were. I was making decent money, and you'd been through a lot, and I was just going to let you kind of ride it out and do what you wanted to do. And that's when I got diagnosed with MS.
Yep.
And you like kicked it into high gear.
Well, yeah, because we realized that there may come a day when I was the only one who could work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what made me really need to realize I needed to kick it in. I was like, okay, I need to make something. I need to make enough money so that we can be good on one income.
Yeah.
If we need to. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And being an aircraft dispatcher at a mainline airline is a really well-paying job. So that was pretty much why I kicked it into high gear. How does that all go to the podcast? Well, then it was the whole me getting diagnosed as autistic 3.5 years ago, getting diagnosed and going on that journey. And I've been talking about doing either like a YouTube channel or a podcast or something for quite a while. And then finally we just decided, let's just start doing it.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. You've always been big on like advocating for like minorities or like less known groups or, like people that just struggle in general, people that feel alone. Yeah.
Well, and like when I was going through the, am I autistic or not? And then I'm pretty sure I'm autistic and everything. Like it was the videos of real actually autistic people that helped me the most versus, someone who's not autistic trying to tell me what being autistic is like. Because if you really like watch a lot of videos or read a lot of stuff from both sides, you got the autistic experts that aren't actually autistic, and then you got the actually autistic voices. It's a very different picture that they paint.
Yeah.
And I, realized the actually autistic voices were the more accurate ones. And so I wanted to put that out there ourselves too, because there's not a lot of that out there.
Yeah.
So, and since we are kind of you're neurotypical and I'm autistic, that I think gives us a good opportunity to kind of compare and contrast, as well as talk about relationship issues and, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. And I think on some level, we're both kind of the personality that we're just kind of real. Like what you see is what you get. We're not going to pretend to be anything we're not. And it kind of gave us maybe a little bit of a unique way to approach this to show, like the real side of things. Like even in my real everyday life at work and in the grocery store, like I don't pretend. I don't have the energy for that. So like what you see is what you get with me. And sometimes it takes people a while to figure that out.
Yeah.
Like I started a new job in January and people still haven't figured out really what I'm about. But
it's funny because like what we did before, that was common. Everyone was just real.
Yep.
Like we dealt with a lot of really heavy stuff.
Yeah.
That you just don't have the time, energy, or patience to put on.
Right.
A false
and we
air.
have to kind of be careful sometimes and like rein it in, because sometimes people can't take that much honesty or like just the reality of things. We have to realize, okay, these people haven't been exposed to the same stuff I have. So and I would never approach a situation and not be real in the situation. But sometimes I just stay quiet or like just not get involved in the situation because people aren't ready. People aren't ready to hear what I have to say sometimes.
Yeah. Let me give you an example of how people aren't prepared for it. A common question that you get when you're a firefighter, people find out you're a firefighter, they'll say, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? First of all, don't ask a firefighter that.
Or anybody in emergency services, really.
Right, because you're asking them to relive one of the worst memories that they have that already is hard enough to not be haunted by. But the other thing is you're not going to get the real answer from them.
Yeah.
Because we know you can't handle the real answer.
Right.
You can't handle the truth,
Yeah.
So you're going to get something from us. You'll get a memory from us that we remember that will sound like the worst thing someone can see to someone who doesn't know any better.
Or we tell a funny story.
Right. But you're not going to get the real answer because you can't. Yeah. Like, we know you can't really handle the worst thing I've seen.
Yeah. Like almost something very exactly what you're talking about happened at work the other night. We had a bad weather day, and bad weather days are busy in the aviation world. Like it's a stacked full day at work. But at the end of the day, we were getting ready to leave, and they were talking about how that's just how summer is, and there's 2 or 3 days a week that are just going to be like that, and we just better get used to it. And then somebody said something about trauma bonding over it. And I said, oh, I know all about trauma bonding. And they went, oh yeah, we forgot. You did 911 before this. And I was like, yeah, I did. And they're like, oh, you probably have lots of stories. I said, oh, I have stories, maybe for another day. And I'm not ready to relive my trauma tonight.
Right.
Like, that's just kind of how it is. Like, we definitely pull it back and either laugh off or brush off the question. And
and that's another reason why I kind of develop a dark sense of humor.
Yeah.
When you're in public safety, and because you have to.
Right.
And so then when you go work on a job that's not in that, and you let your dark sense of humor slip out, you get people that are like, what did you just say? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. This is like not
shock.
Yeah. This is not a good place to.
You see their eyes go wide, and oh no, what have I done? No, but I mean, if you want to talk to, and this is the autistic part of it. Like, if you're trying to find a way to relate to or talk to somebody, don't ask them, oh, what's the worst thing you've seen? Ask them, do you have any funny stories or something like that? Like, they'll tell you their funny stories. That's like,
ask them about like good outcomes.
Yeah. Like, speak positively, because you're not ready to hear the real answer anyways. And you don't even want that to have to cross their mind. So just a tip for people listening is ask them to hear a funny story or a happy story that they have from their time as in that career.
It's funny too, though, because when you're sitting there talking about, ask them about a funny story, like 2 or 3 funny stories went through my mind from my past.
That all still aren't appropriate to tell somebody.
that somebody who hasn't worked in it wouldn't find funny probably at all.
Right. Yeah.
But it's stuff that we just have to kind of.
Yeah. At least you're not reliving trauma.
Right. Okay.
All right. So that kind of is the ride that we took with Ryan from Tulsa. So thank you, Ryan, for that.
We might just end up just keeping this to segment 1, because we've got.
Yeah, we can do other segments at other times.
8 questions to go. I mean, 8 questions total, and we're at 40-something minutes.
Okay. Well, we can talk.
Editing will cut.
If nothing else, we can talk.
Yeah.
Next question is from Megan in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
GRR.
Oh, yeah.
Grand Rapids.
It's funny because I almost said, where's Grand Rapids? And then you said GRR, and I know right where it is.
not hearing the state, but
that
is funny.
That is funny. So Megan asks, what's one thing that people would be surprised to learn about each of you?
One thing that a lot of people are surprised to learn about me, which is true about both of us, is that we have 7 kids.
Oh, yeah. That is true.
That is not common these days. And they're always like, are you Mormon or Catholic? It's like, well, neither. But we were both raised Mormon, but we don't have 7 kids that we decided to have together.
Right.
We're
we
like
don't
Brady
have any
Bunch.
together.
Right.
Yep. I always say Brady Bunch or, blended family.
Yeah.
He had 4 and I had 3. So.
And now we have 7.
Now we have 7. Yep.
And when they were younger and we had them all together.
Summer times, we ate a lot of PB&J.
Yep. A lot of chaos, but it was a lot of fun chaos.
Looking back at it, I don't really know how we juggled it all, but we did. We seemed to do okay with it. The kids had fun. Like, we had good fun summer times.
We had fun. They had fun memories. Unfortunately, some of the memories get twisted. People who want to convince them that they didn't have as much fun.
We grilled a lot. We did the pool in the backyard. Parks, lakes, the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
Check it out. Free.
It's free.
And it is days of things to see. So
a lot to check out.
Just a lot of things. Once you got flight benefits, we would do day trips to DC, the
Mm-hmm.
National Mall, lots of free stuff to
Yep.
see. Just we knew all of the free stuff
Yep.
because when you have 7 kids, you don't go to Disneyland every year or
Yeah.
Disney World or whatever the
We
case
did do
may
a
be.
Disney World trip with 6 of the kids.
We did.
Yep.
Once.
Yep.
But hey, we did it and it
Well,
was
and
fun.
wasn't that long ago we did a Universal trip with 6 of the kids too.
Yep.
That was the last trip we
that was
did with
5.
all of them
We
together.
had 5 that year.
Oh, 5.
Yep.
Yeah.
They all started aging out on us.
Yep.
Okay. So are we counting that as both of our answers? I don't know. Do you know of something else people would be surprised about to learn about me?
I don't know.
I'm kind of boring. I kind of like it that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like we've had a pretty chaotic life, and we're kind of at a point where we're kind of boring and totally okay with it.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of fun about me that I tell people when I tell them I'm a boy mom, because my 3 biological children are all boys, is I have 3 sisters. So I
Yeah.
grew up in a house of 4 girls and my parents, and I full-time, I mean, your kids visited us regularly, but full-time we raised 3 boys. So
Mhm.
it definitely stark differences. So that's a little bit fun. Tidbits. Maybe part of why I am the way I am. I don't know.
Well, I think you survived having 3 boys because of the way you are, not the other way around. You have to be just kind of go with the flow, not easily.
I learned early on to pick my battles, I think. It's just some things you just have to let go. Like, I don't know.
When we first met, like you were, like you were newly single mom and dealing with 3 boys who
were going through a tough time.
They were going through
a lot
tough
of adjustment
time. And the oldest is, we know he's ADHD, autistic as well. And this is a fun story. She called me. I don't remember like whether it was afterwards or if it happened while we were on the phone and you had to do whatever. He was misbehaving and he took off on her. And she was like, "Get back here." And he just kept running.
Just to paint a picture for y'all, he was in 1st grade at the time. So he was pretty young and just testing the boundaries of this whole new situation.
Yeah.
So.
Plus you had what we know now, autistic elopement.
Yeah.
Is a thing too. Anyways, he took off running from Bridget and she had to chase him down. Well, she lived around the corner from her parents. So she went there because she like, did you see him go there or knew he was going there or whatever?
I don't remember.
Either way, she goes in there and finds him sitting at the table eating ice cream because Grandma gave him ice cream.
Oh, yeah. They always went to Grandma's house for suckers or ice cream or cookies or, whatever she had at the time.
And so she drug his little butt back home. And I remember you were just like at your wit's end. You were like, what are we going to do? And I was like, you put that kid to work. I'm like, make him vacuum the whole place. And so I don't know if it's that same conversation, but I remember talking with you on the phone and hearing him in the background vacuuming and crying, "I'll be good, I promise." And you were like, keep vacuuming.
The vacuum the whole place is relative. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, so I didn't work my 1st grader to the bone, but sometimes we should have. He needed it.
I was vacuuming at a young age. I loved to vacuum. Maybe that's another thing that should have been a sign. I loved vacuuming. I don't know why. I always did.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very satisfying.
You've lost that over the years?
Yeah. No, like even when I cleaned pools for a living for a while.
Vacuuming the bottom of the pool.
Vacuuming the bottom of the pool was very satisfying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well,
that was question
Megan,
3, right?
There you go.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay. Next question from Leo from Rochester, New York. What are your weirdly specific hobbies or obsessions that have nothing to do with autism? I mean, if you're autistic, can any of that have nothing to do with autism?
Yeah, I don't know if you really differentiate a line at that point, if it's to do with autism or not. They're just hobbies and interests.
Yeah. Because usually if you're talking about autistic special interests, they do seem strange to people who aren't autistic.
Yeah.
Like a 47-year-old guy who likes Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Or like, you know, like one of the girls from Love on the Spectrum has a huge collection of American Girl dolls.
Yeah.
You know, and that's their special interest. So a weirdly specific hobby. Can you think of anything? Because I already, like, as soon as someone asks me something about myself, I forget that I exist.
Aside from like things we've already talked about, like trains and
Airplanes and firefighting. And
I don't know of anything like else specific that you do. And I know some.
Here's a fun thing. So I like to play video games, but this is kind of funny. Our youngest makes fun of me for this sometimes too. I'll play GTA 5, which, you know, Grand Theft Auto, violent game. The whole idea of the game is to go around doing criminal stuff.
Like literally.
Yeah.
Stealing cars to do other crimes.
I play it to fly the airplane.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
That is funny.
I will get on there and I will dress up the main character in what looks like a pilot, like it's just a suit, but it's closest thing to a pilot. And I will literally like fly around like I'm flying routes. And if I'm not doing that, then there's a helicopter that I can fly.
Helicopter, yeah.
That I'll pretend like it's doing like rescue missions.
Yeah.
And I'll like pick a random spot on the map to fly to and land at and then fly back to the hospital.
That is true. You do that. You know, it's funny you say that because I think video games, like, it's this whole, each specific video game will be like this whole world and whole setup and storyline and all this stuff. And there's missions and there's things. And it's like you zero in on one thing in the video game. Like there was that Ghost Recon game that we used to play years ago. And we always played the helicopter hunt. We went to one little specific spot on the map and we would get, but I don't remember what the gun was called.
Some kind of bazooka or something.
Yeah, some kind of shoulder cannon of some type. And we would shoot down the helicopters and see if we could do it faster next time. Like,
which is funny because that's also something I do in GTA.
Oh yeah.
I'll set it up so that I use cheat codes because that's the other thing. I don't care if it's cheating. If I just want to have fun, so I'll use the cheat code that pretty much makes all your ammo explosive, and then I go and land on a rooftop, like a really high up building, with a helicopter.
Yeah,
and I'll, shoot at people below to get me wanted to the point where they start sending helicopters at me, and then I just keep shooting down the helicopters. That's right. It's funny.
Yep. And I'm sure in the autistic community, some of our listeners are twitching right now because they're very into video games and playing them from start to finish and all, like doing everything that the game requires or wants you to do. And we zero in on one part of it. So they're like, what's wrong with you?
Our sons are that way. About GTA, and that's the only reason I can fly the airplanes, because I sign in under their thing, because I don't want to play the game all the way through. Yeah, they've got all the money and they've got the airport and the airplane and everything, so I sign in under them and just fly around. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. So
I guess that's weirdly specific.
Yeah,
there you go.
What's really funny, okay, so when I'm shooting down the helicopters, I told you I've made all the ammo explosive, right? And I use a little, like, what's the kind of gun that spins when it's shooting?
I can picture it, but I don't know what it is.
Anyways, I can't think of it either. But I use that to shoot at them, and I try to actually hit them just right. If you hit the tail rotor just right, it won't blow up the whole helicopter. It'll just disable the tail rotor, and then the thing will spiral out of control and crash. And it's more fun to try to shoot it down like that than to just blow it up, because, you got to be really good and specific, and I've gotten pretty good at it. So
yeah, sounds like it. Goodness gracious, that's funny.
So yeah, that's my weirdly specific hobby.
All right, Leo, there you go.
Yep.
I think that's pretty weird and specific.
Just the way I play video games. I like to play baseball and football games, but I always jack up my characters because, again,
the teams,
I'm just playing to have fun.
Your team is always fully loaded. None of us want to play against you because we know we're going to lose.
Yeah.
So
and losing's not fun.
He plays the computer. That was one thing that when you used to play video games with the kids, you always said you weren't going to go easy on them because they're not going to learn to be better if you go easy on them. And now they can all beat you at every game. Playing with
them. If it was just a matter of them beating me, that'd be one thing. But our youngest is obnoxious about it. It's just not fun.
Yeah, I wonder where he gets it from.
I don't know. I have no idea.
All right. Moving on to the next question. Tessa from Knoxville, Tennessee. She asks, how did you two meet?
We kind of talked about this.
Yeah, we kind of covered a little bit, but we'll summarize. We basically were on opposite ends of the country. I was in Utah, he was in Ohio, and neither of us interested in dating or starting a relationship of any sort, logged into a chat room back in the day one night and just looking for somebody to talk to or just to kind of pass the time, and ended up meeting each other.
Yep.
So that's really
started talking, really vibed.
Yeah. I mean, we still have our first conversation saved, and it doesn't seem like a first conversation. Still to this day, reading it is like...
She was joking about us getting married in the first conversation.
I did. I joked about it, and that part's cringe, but here we are.
I mean, here we are. It's only cringe if it didn't end up happening.
That's true. Anyways, so Tessa, that's how we met. Well,
was it episode 7 when I interviewed you that we kind of went?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
It's the interview of me, though. If it's not number 7, it's...
Yeah. If you haven't seen that one or listened to that one, she kind of goes a little more into depth.
Yeah.
We talk about it a little more, so.
Yep.
Okay. Next question is from Damon from Sacramento, California. What's your favorite thing about working on the podcast together?
Honestly, I, for this one, would have to say just like recording.
Yeah.
Like just sitting here and having like real conversations with you. Like new topics, not stuff we deal with every day, but like stuff that we can really like delve into and talk. I just enjoy sitting here and talking and bouncing it off of you. Also hearing you, like, you'll come to me and talk to me about stuff that you found. We could incorporate this into the podcast, or we could talk about this on the podcast because I read this article, or things like that. Like it gives us a new avenue to communicate,
a new thing to do together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're actually a couple that enjoys each other's company all the time. So
we like spending time together. So it gives us something new to do during that time together because we're out of TV shows and no. To be real, like we have like the same 3 TV shows we watch over and over again from beginning to end. So it's like new things that we can do together is always like a welcome thing. And this is a good one, I think. Do you have a different part of it that's your favorite part?
No, that's what I was going to say.
Cool.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening, both dogs are on the couch next to me, to my right side. Usually I have Harvey, and Mala will go sit by Keith. We keep them separate because they compete for my attention.
Because she's the dog whisperer.
Right now, they are both by me and competing for my attention. So Mala's being very pathetic.
Mala's doing the sad eyes.
And I'm trying to ignore her.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7. Haley from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania asks, do you ever completely disagree on something podcast related, and who usually wins?
I don't think we have we?
No, I don't think so. There's been things that you've brought up that I've been like, I think it's better that we steer clear of that.
Yeah.
But not really like a disagreement.
Because it's always...
You're like, yeah, you're probably right.
We're always like collaborating and just like getting each other's input. And we've never really completely disagreed on anything.
Yeah.
But if we ever did, I would win.
Probably true. Probably true because at this point in our relationship and our life, like it's not worth it to disagree on stuff. Like,
dude, you can't say that because then that drives me nuts.
I know, because but no, I'm not one that's gonna not be true to myself, but in some things when I can compromise, it's like, okay, it's not worth having a disagreement over that because it's not that big of a deal.
Honestly though, like we've been together for 15 years, like we've figured each other out.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think we're both kind of that way. We're both, I don't think there's very much in anything that we disagree on so much that one of us has to win and the other has to lose or anything, so.
Yeah.
We usually will work out a compromise if.
It's interesting though that you say like win and lose, because that's one of the big things that I think your autistic brain does. And this was part of learning that you're autistic for me is the black and white. Like in situations where something goes wrong, your brain, like, you always dig to find out who did it, like, who's to blame, who's at fault, who, like, someone has to be wrong and someone has to be right. Someone caused it and someone isn't to blame, like, or even just someone caused this, like, there's someone to go to
It's
for
not
this
even
issue.
necessarily about to blame, but like if it's a situation like, hey, who did this so I can, like, especially when it comes to the kids, like, so I can tell you this is why you don't do that or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah. It's not negative thing. I used to think it was. I used to think it was, like, unhealthy. Like, why do we have to figure this out? It's not that important. Now I understand that it's like, it's that parenting part of you that's like, okay, we need to learn something from this.
Yeah.
And it's not done in a negative or bad way, but yeah, it's the someone has to be right, someone has to be wrong, or someone has to be responsible for this. Even though sometimes things just happen. Technology, especially with technology, like, sometimes there's an update and things work different than they used to, or there's a technology glitch, or, like, just things like that. I just think it's interesting, but that is definitely one thing that learning about your autism has helped me understand.
It's funny because along those lines, like the kids, sometimes there'll be something that's probably like that, but I'm like, no, somebody did something. And they're like, no, it just, I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't us. Well, yesterday, our youngest was listening to music in his room.
Oh, yeah.
And it kept pausing. And he was certain we were messing with him. To be fair, I've done that before to mess with him.
Right.
So
we've definitely played with their.
like we could get on the Amazon
Echo in their room.
Yeah.
Just the sound, the speaker ones that they could play music on, or that we could drop into their room and call him down for dinner or whatever.
And like sometimes I'll stop his music to make him come out of his room.
Get his attention, yeah.
So he asked if that was us doing that, and we're like, no, we're not doing that. He swore it's got to be you guys because it won't just do that on its own. And we're like, well, it is apparently because it wasn't us.
Yeah.
So that is funny.
I guess we're on both sides of that, huh?
Yep. But he's also ADHD and probably autistic, so
yeah,
he's got the same black and white thinking that he doesn't like from me.
And yeah, for sure. You want to do number 8?
Yeah, number 8. If you weren't doing a podcast or working in dispatch, what would your dream jobs be?
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, honestly, I always wanted to be a nurse. Like, that was one of my when I went back to school, I would have gone back to school to be a nurse if I didn't have MS because I was worried about physical limitations. But nursing has always interested me.
Yeah.
I would say that.
For me, it's kind of weird because, like, I've done my dream job. I was a firefighter. I couldn't do it now, even if I wanted to. I'm just too beat up. But on the flip side of that, I'm one of those people that's like, if we're living in a dream, why are we having a job at all? Like, dream job is like an oxymoron. Like, yeah, like
that's very
it's like, it's like if you have to have a job, what job would you not hate? Or would you enjoy doing? But like, dream job, like here's my dream job at hospitals.
Oh yeah,
you can volunteer to hold and comfort babies in the NICU.
Yeah,
and that would be me.
Yep.
I would
just go cuddle the babies.
I would love that.
He says, I'm the dog whisperer. Keith is the baby whisperer. And if you have an infant that is colicky or sad or just needs someone to cuddle with, Keith will cuddle your baby, and it's not creepy, I promise. And that baby will fall asleep. I don't know how he does it. He has the magic touch. Oh my goodness.
And there's just no better feeling than a baby sleeping on you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thinking about you with a baby sleeping on you.
You want to see me turn into a pile of goo.
Uh-huh. That's your good funny story that you need to tell people when they ask to hear a funny story about the fire department.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We both were going there because I thought of it too. So when I was a firefighter, it was early morning. We got dispatched to a 2-week-old choking. And that, of course, already gets your blood pumping.
Yeah, you think the fire department moves fast to a call. You dispatch them to a 2-week-old choking, and
of course, on the way there, we're like, what could a 2-week-old be choking on?
Yeah.
Like, what could they get a hold of that they'd be choking on? So we get there, we go running in there, and the baby's like coughing. Brand new parents, baby was being fed, started having a coughing fit, and they called 911 for a baby choking. I immediately like grabbed the baby and was just sitting there like talking with the baby, like baby talk and everything. And I turn around and like my entire crew mates are all just standing there like staring at me like, who is this guy? And I was like, oh yeah, I've got 7 kids. Big surprise, I like babies. Like,
yeah.
So
that was a good one. Yep. You just take to the babies right away.
Some people, you go to a party, if there's a dog there, that's all you want to focus on. If there's a baby there, give me the baby. I'll snuggle the baby. Yes. Everyone else, you can interact. I'll take care of the baby.
Yes, definitely true. I can get Keith to go anywhere if I tell him there's going to be a baby. Social gatherings, he will be like, I will go and hold the baby.
Yep.
And I don't need to have any interactions with anybody else. As long as I can hold the baby, I'm good.
I've been like, we need to become friends with them because they have a cute baby.
Yes, he has. And he also has this grandpa senses tingling. And I'm like, no, our kids are too young. Let's give them some time. We don't need grandkids yet. But he definitely is looking forward to that phase of life. So.
I am. Yeah.
Cool.
I want to snuggle all the babies.
There's your dream job.
There's my dream job. Yeah.
In a library.
Oh, there you go. Hanging out with Neil Peart.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, that's my heaven. That's not my...
Yeah.
Okay. Segment 2 is relatable questions.
So everyday challenges, stims, and stuff we deal with.
Yep. So we'll start with the first one. Emily from Des Moines, Iowa. What's something super normal that feels way harder than it should be for you guys? Like for us as a couple or individually? What do you...
I think individually. I think that was one of the ones we got from forums. So it was geared more towards just autistic people.
Oh, okay. We already kind of talked about it. Like working a full-time job and doing stuff outside of the full-time job is probably, it's normal for most people. And I'm big on like not letting your job become your life. And I don't think that my job is my life, but I don't have like something else that takes up a lot of my time outside of it. Yeah. Other than the podcast now, really.
Right.
But like, yeah, I'm not in any sports leagues. Like the closest to that we get is football season when it's marching band season and everything.
Oh, that's true.
Go to the football games and the marching band competitions and stuff with our son. But yeah, that's definitely it's like normal for most people. Like even last night, I was just like, I overhear coworkers talking about athletes and sports and who's going to do this and how well they're doing this year. And I'm like, okay, like I know some athletes from some teams, but I'm like, yeah, he hits the ball hard,
Yeah. Well, what cracks me up is like, I grew up watching basketball. So you are not a basketball fan. Yeah. You just don't care for it at all. And I probably haven't sat down and watched a full basketball game since I moved out of my parents' house. So that tells you, it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. I have grown children now. So it's funny to me to sit and listen to people at work talk about basketball, NBA basketball players, and I have no idea who any of the people are because I know John Stockton and Karl Malone and Michael Jordan. Like these are and they are long gone. Yeah. So yeah, I totally can understand that.
When I was still in school, like still a kid, and the Houston Rockets won the world championship twice in a row. Like I watched those games. One of the playoff games was interrupted by O.J. Simpson's police chase. I remember that. But those were probably the only full basketball games I ever watched.
Yeah. Well, and something that I just thought about while you were talking is like in our minds, Shaquille O'Neal is a basketball player.
Yeah.
Our kids probably think of Shaquille O'Neal as an actor.
Yeah, he's just a comedy actor.
Do they even know that he played basketball?
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to ask him. I'm curious about that.
Here's a really old name, and I knew this name because I still knew some of the well-known basketball players like, Michael Jordan or whatever. But this one's even kind of an older one. when I was a pool cleaner in Houston, I got a pool on my route that I learned. It was after having cleaned it a few times. Really, really expensive house. I drove through the middle of it to get to the back where the pool was. But it was Moses Malone's pool.
Oh, okay.
And he's like an old-timey
that's
basketball
before
player.
I really watched. But
he's old school, though.
Yeah.
I never met him. Met his wife. She's really, really nice.
Yeah.
I more than once pulled floating dead armadillos out of his pool.
That's just
it was just like
thing.
Yeah, it was just had a big old piece of land and there wasn't any fence around or anything. So
just wandered into the pool.
Pretty much. Yep. But like when I was really little and we had an Atari computer and we had video games on there, we had a one-on-one basketball game, and it was Dr. J versus Larry Bird.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
How did we get on this topic? Anyways. It was still talking about athletes.
Yep.
And then we went to basketball. Here's my thing with basketball, though. If you score points, 1 or 2 points at a time, maybe 3 points at a time, and the score gets up into the hundreds, can we just find a sport that's hard now? Like, that's maybe it's an autistic thing, but it's just people running back and forth, scoring over and over again. Like,
there's a lot more to it, but we won't get.
And then soccer's on the complete opposite end of that. You could go hours,
no score,
and it's no score. Yeah, like what did I just watch? Why
busting their tails just to get 1 point? Yeah.
Anyways, okay.
All right. Next question is from Marcus from Portland. Did we say who the last one was from?
Emily from Des Moines. Yeah, I said that.
Okay. Marcus from Portland, Oregon asks, do you guys actually plan out your episodes or just kind of wing it? That's a fair question after last week.
Right.
We plan them out most for the most part. Some of the conversation that we have during the episodes is definitely natural and
just
organic, just conversation.
And that's kind of what we wanted.
Yeah.
We didn't want, we don't have a script. We certainly don't have a script that we stick to or follow.
Yeah. We kind of try to follow an outline.
Yeah.
But as far as filling it in and the in-between conversation, definitely it's just
we really kind of had the first 5 or 6 episodes planned before we even started recording. And then we ended up recording our first episode about RFK Jr.'s ridiculousness. And so that, we kind of bumped the first 5 or 6 after that. So I think we hit a bad spot where my burnout hits the same spot where we don't have a whole bunch of episodes pre-planned. We kind of winged it last week and we planned out better this week, but it was still, not diving as much into researching information and giving it to people. So
yeah,
I'm sure people will be tired of hearing just about us at some point. So we need to.
Yeah, no, we're definitely.
I need to try to dig in, but.
Yep, that's the plan.
Yep.
You want to do
Okay,
11?
next one, Jasmine from Tampa, Florida. What's your favorite stim right now? I'm always looking for new ones to try. I have those little Nido things.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like little squishies. Right now, I've still got a nice cube, and I also have the little gumdrops. And that's a really good stim if I'm sitting at work.
Yeah.
And just, need a little something to stim with that's not.
Can I tell you a secret?
Go ahead.
I stole one of the gumdrops. I've been using it at work. It definitely just something to keep my hands busy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I love that one. And that one has kind of a bumpy texture on it that the cube is smooth.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on if the bumps are going to bug
both
you.
Both of them, the smoothness of the cube is satisfying, but the texture of the gumdrop one is too. So it's kind of funny. I have little texture strips. That we bought a bunch of.
Like stickers that you can put on a phone.
Put them on the back of your phone, or you can put them on your computer or something like that. Yeah. And I don't even know where those went, but I used to have one of those on the back of my phone. But yeah, that's kind of
that's
what
really
I do for stimming right now. When I'm home, it's I'll just watch something that's comforting. Like yesterday, especially, so we talked about earlier about the weather and how we've been dealing with crazy weather. So 3 of my last 5 work days have been crazy weather days.
Yeah.
And I'm a 47-year-old, so I usually am getting up every hour to go to the bathroom. That's just kind of comes with the age. those 3 days, I wasn't able to get up for the first 4 hours of my shift.
Yeah.
It's just
It gets
really,
that
really,
way.
really busy. And it's especially crazy when it's that busy on the midnight shift. Usually, thankfully, with the midnight shift, it all starts to calm down at least halfway through because the schedule's pretty much wrapping up.
Yeah. Before you start again for the next day.
Right, before you have to start planning for the next day. But that's why I've been particularly just wiped out. And so yesterday, like, a lot of times if we're all sitting down to watch something, we'll watch like one of the shows that we like to watch. But I asked Bridget, I was like, you care if I put on one of my stimmy movies? I'm not even going to be able to finish it, but I just need to be able to just sit. And so we put on Gladiator and watch that. So,
yep.
So yeah, that's kind of my stim now, though. I think any good fidget thing.
Yeah.
Especially like there's some fidgets that specifically make certain like noise and clicking sounds that can be satisfying.
And sometimes the clicks are a bad thing.
Right.
Like sometimes you don't want the clicks because it's too much for you.
What's funny is my keyboard that I use at work. We both own our own keyboards that we take to work because it's just using shared keyboards that are always getting broken or whatever gets annoying. So the keyboard that I bought it. It said it was supposed to be not so clicky, but it's actually pretty clicky. But
yeah, yours is way more clicky than mine.
Kind of like that, actually. Like, yeah. I don't know if it's just grown on me or whatever, but that's almost kind of a stim in and of itself I don't do a whole lot of typing.
Yeah.
But when I do have to type something out,
when you need to stim.
Yeah, there you go.
Send me a Teams message. It's funny.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can do the next one.
All right. Do either of you struggle with eye contact, or is that just a stereotype? And this is from Noah in Chicago, Illinois.
It's definitely not a stereotype.
Yeah.
I definitely struggle with eye contact. I do it more often than I would have if I hadn't been like pretty much forced to growing up. Like, oh, you're being disrespectful. But yeah, even with the spouse staring into your eyes too long, it's like this, I'm looking through the little hole in your head. Yeah. That's weird,
And on the flip side of that, I'm an eye contact person. When I talk to somebody, I want to at least see their face. Yeah. And that was like one of my rules with the boys with their hair growing up is you can wear your hair any way you want to. If I'm paying for the haircuts, I need to see your eyes. Yeah. Like that was always my rule. And that's just kind of how I function. I don't force them to have eye contact with me when I'm having a conversation, but me, like I need to see your eyes. Like, I don't care if you look back at me. I understand it's uncomfortable for some people, but
for me with our youngest anyways, the thing that drives me nuts the most is he wants to be out of my sight. Like he tries to be behind me. Like, especially when I'm sitting in my recliner and I'm trying to talk to him about something, he'll be behind me and I try to look either way. And it's like, he's trying to stay out of my sight. And I'm like, you need to be somewhere where I can at least see you. I don't want to look in your eyes. I don't want eye contact any more than he does.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's because he just doesn't like being perceived or if that's because when he does talk, he wants to pace and wander around too. And I'm like, okay.
A lot of it's the pacing and wandering he wants to go. But all right. Next question is, do you want to do the next one?
Do you ever catch yourself masking without realizing it? I mean, yeah.
I think as a late diagnosed person, that's easy to fall into because you're still trying to figure out what all is masking and what isn't.
Because that's become the habit.
Yeah.
Masking becomes the habit. It's just what you do.
And we kind of talked about this in our masking episode is being late diagnosed. It's kind of part of the challenge of figuring yourself out is unmasking because some of the stuff you've masked for so long, it's become your natural response.
Yeah.
So
what's the mask? What is who I am? What was a mask that has become who I am? Yeah. Like, it's like the image of trying to pull off a mask and like your skin is stuck to parts of it almost.
Yeah.
Like
part
you
of
can't
it has
distinguish
become
part of the mask.
Part of you. Yeah.
So yeah, I probably still do a lot of masking without realizing it.
Yeah.
I'm more aware of the fact that probably the way I act like at work or around people is a mask, but I'm not like consciously masking.
And I think maybe sometimes you even realize it after the fact, like you go through the situation and handle it like you normally would. And then after the fact, you're just so exhausted. You're like, man, that was a lot more than I thought it was going to be. So, like looking back on it, you realize it involved a lot more masking.
Learning about masking and understanding what it is, and that it's so exhausting, explained a lot from my life. Just why was I so exhausted doing normal things that doesn't exhaust everybody else?
Yeah. Stuff that everybody does, Or you thought everybody did.
Right.
But anyways.
Let's see. How many more do we have? We have 2 more questions.
Yeah, let's
in
do
that
2 more for this
we'll
segment.
Do that.
Yep.
Yep.
The next one is from Chris from Reno, Nevada. And Chris asks, has anyone ever said something super weird or awkward after you told them you're autistic?
Has anybody not?
I think people just, in general, don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
And how awkward they are in everyday life depends on how awkward their response is.
So a lot of the responses that we tend to get, especially when you're a late diagnosed autistic, almost all of them are just, they come from maybe good intentioned ignorance, but they still come from ignorance.
Yeah.
I've gotten things from, like people, well, who told you that? Like I would just make it up, or like some random person on the street would tell me I'm autistic and I'd be like, hey, I'm autistic now, or there's, the response I got from a coworker, oh, well, it must be a very minor case. I'm like, no, but whatever.
Yeah.
To that one counselor that I went to that, oh, I don't think you're autistic because you clearly care about your family, and autistic people only care about themselves. No.
Say what?
So, yeah, I mean, I would say most responses that I get are probably awkward, at least.
I think that's part of the challenge is like, there's things that as we learn more about autism and the spectrum and masking and unmasking and all of that, like there are old labels and old words that people use, like, oh, minor case or high functioning or, things like that. And we have to replace those with acceptable terms and teach people about that. So
like high functioning is really high masking.
Right.
And I think that's important because high functioning makes it sound like, oh, you do just fine. You're good.
Right.
But high masking is like, it's exhausting. So it's always something kind of awkward.
There's a lot of comments and offhanded things that people say that.
When I started to really strongly believe I was autistic, I told my mom that I thought I was autistic. And her immediate response was, no, you're not. And that's a common one too. People will be like, oh, well, I know someone who's autistic and you're not like them, so you can't be autistic. And I think
we're all different.
She was doing the same thing because she always worked
high support needs kids.
With the high support needs kids to integrate them into classes. So it was like, no, you're not like the kids I had to work with, so you're not autistic. But then when I was actually officially diagnosed, and she was told that I was autistic, my sister told her that I was autistic, I was diagnosed, and her response was, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm like...
Yeah. No, those are not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is weird and awkward as well.
Yep. All right.
Oh, this is a good question to end on.
Yeah. So last question that we're going to do for today. And it is from, I'll say who it's from, and then you can read the question. We'll tag team it.
There you go.
This is from Lena in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
What do you two do to unwind after recording?
Well, usually Keith has to find his little memory drive thing to plug into the computer to download it so that something doesn't get lost in a glitch.
Pretty much, yeah. When we record, the audio is being recorded directly onto the laptop.
Yeah.
And the video is recorded onto a memory card in the camera. And then, one of the first things I have to do is transfer the video to the laptop so we don't lose that. And we actually save our stuff on the cloud anyways, but...
Yeah.
And then it depends. Today, I'll probably want to just sit and watch some stimmy movies, and Bridget will probably be going to bed soon.
Yeah. We've recorded at different times of the day, and sometimes it's like right before we go to bed. Sometimes it's like first thing in the morning, midday. Like it really depends on, but usually we kind of just relax and chill together for a little bit, like watch a TV show or...
Yeah, we've never had like a specific time of day that we always record. We just have to work it into our schedule.
Yeah.
Like Bridget worked an early morning shift and I worked overnight last night, so I slept in the morning and she was working, and then we're like, okay, we're going to record this afternoon. But we've recorded after midnight. Some nights we've recorded, like I've had to get up earlier than I normally would so we could record, but
Yep.
So yeah, it depends on what time of day it is and what's going on, but
yeah, we fit it in, but as far as what we do afterwards, it really just depends on when we recorded.
Probably the most common thing is us just sitting and relaxing in our recliners.
Yeah, well, usually while your stuff is downloading, while the recording stuff is downloading, we just stand by and watch something.
And if I'm feeling motivated, I'll immediately start editing. Like I don't work tonight.
You don't work tonight?
I don't work tonight.
I didn't know that.
No, this is like my one night off, and then I go into a 6-day stretch. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at you.
Right? So I will probably chill out for a while and spend some time with Bridget till she actually goes to bed, and then I'll probably start working on editing.
Yep.
Getting this episode together.
Sounds good to me. We need to make dinner.
Oh, we do need to do that too.
Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there with the questions. Yep. We may do some more questions later. We'll try to do some more informational episodes the next few just in between, and then do these as like reprieve episodes once in a while.
But consider it a standing request / offer. If you have a question that comes up, send us a question. Comment on an episode. We're on Facebook, so you can interact with us there. That's where we got some of these questions from.
Yep.
Yeah. Check us out on all of our...
And don't think that we're going to wait till an episode 3 months down the road to answer your question. We'll respond to you, but we may also use it in an episode.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, and check out our merch store again.
Yep.
There's some cool stuff. I was hoping, I had ordered a couple more samples, and I was hoping they were going to come in before we recorded so I could wear them and not a competitor's.
That's all right next time.
But it's okay. I'll support people in the community anyway, so.
Yep, that's right. That's what we do.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe and share. Yep. Do all those good things. Let your friends and family in on this Autistic podcast.
That's the best way you can help us, honestly, is spread the word. Say, hey, there's this podcast that I think you could relate to. So, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Definitely. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will be back next week with some more real life talk about autism.
We'll see you. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for diagnosis or treatment of autism or related condition.